This week on a special Jerusalem Dateline, we go straight into the middle of the hot debate over dividing Jerusalem. Plus, battle for the Temple Mount, how Muslim leaders have been keeping Jews from praying on the Jewish holy site. And Jerusalem is holy to three faiths, the prize of empires, and the site of Judgment Day. How did this small town become the center of the world? Hello and welcome to this special edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. An ancient Jewish proverb says that 10 measures of beauty descended to the world, and 9 were taken by Jerusalem. The fate of Jerusalem has long split the Middle East. Should the Holy City be united under Israelis? Should it be divided between Jews and Palestinians? Scott Ross took to the streets of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv to ask the people who live there what they think.
Jerusalem. Its name means City of Peace, yet it's been destroyed, rebuilt, conquered, and reconquered more times than any other city in history.
The city has a role to play. It's the center of the world.
For 19 years, Jerusalem was divided between Israel and Jordan, with the old city on the Jordan side. In 1967, the Six-Day War led to the reuniting of the city under Israeli sovereignty. Now, part of the U.S.-backed peace process seeks to split the city once again. But Israel maintains Jerusalem is its eternal, undivided capital. Palestinians want the eastern part for the capital of a future state. But Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat told me dividing the city is impossible.
It cannot be divided. It will never function as a divided city. It has to be one physical city, enabling all to worship their faith their way, to respect each other, and there's room for all.
Can you convince Palestinians of that?
The Palestinian residents that live in Jerusalem understand that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm also a high-tech entrepreneur, a venture capitalist.
Yes.
It will never work. There's not one good example of a city that was split that ever functioned.
Jerusalem is mentioned by name more than 800 times in the Bible, even more if you count synonyms like the city of David and Zion. 660 of those references are in the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament.
I remember this very day. I sat in the park, my kids were playing in the park, and I realized when Zechariah said there will yet be a time when old men and old women rest on the canes and children will play in the streets of Jerusalem, maybe my kids were what he saw.
I sat down with author and businessman Moshe Kempinski and asked him about the Jewish connection to this city. What does Jerusalem mean to the Jewish people? I mean, it sounds like an inane question, but, you know, why Jerusalem?
Well, it's a name because, it could be a name because why Jerusalem? Why not a city next to resources on the shores, which is where most people put their capital cities? But God chose it.
The city being divided at one point, reunited again in 67. Will it be divided again?
I don't think it can be. Psalm 122 says, to Jerusalem that is built as a city that is compacted together. But in Hebrew, it doesn't say compacted. In Hebrew, it actually says, shechubra la yachdav, that's reunited together. God is saying, this is a city that will be torn asunder, but then I'm going to bring it back together.
I talked with Israelis in Tel Aviv. They say they're willing to share the city, but not divide it.
My heart, it's something that I cannot agree with.
Right.
You know, that my town gonna be separated.
We believe that Jerusalem is supposed to be Jewish forever, but I do believe that there's supposed to be a solution that's going to be good for the both of the people.
Kempinski says God has a plan for the city, whether the world believes in it or not. What do other nations say when you, or other groups say, when you speak the way you're speaking now, with your argument, your point of view? How does a Palestinian respond to that?
The secret, I think the secret to understanding this country is that facts are completely irrelevant.
Facts are
completely irrelevant. Reality is not what counts here. Perception of reality is what counts. And I believe that to understand what goes on here, especially with the Palestinians, is you need to understand what they perceive. They really believe what they believe because they've been told that's what they need to believe. So dialogue with a Palestinian today has become almost impossible because Islam has moved into an area where it's become impossible.
Jerusalem is never mentioned by name in the Quran, but Muslims interpret a reference to the furthest mosque being Al-Aqsa Mosque on Jerusalem's Temple Mount. Muslims and Arab Christians are passionate about their connection to the city.
This is all Arab town. This is Arab town, can't be divided.
They even argue among themselves.
I didn't say to give.
You can't divide
Never,
the old
ever
city.
I say to give.
Jerusalem, I said it's only for Palestinians.
And it's
not Israeli. Israel outside the occupied territory. Where is Zion
What
Gate?
you are going to do with the
So
Wailing
here's
Wall?
the issue right in
The
front of
Wailing
your
Wall,
eyes.
they could have the Wailing Wall and the Armenian Quarter.
As one of the most contested places on earth, the Bible says Jerusalem will be a stumbling block to the entire world. We pray for the peace of Jerusalem. What are we praying for?
The word for peace is
Shalom?
Shalom. It comes out of the word shalem, complete.
Right.
We're praying for that completion, when the heavenly and the earthly will be clearly seen as being united. It's not a future event, it's a future revelation.
Do you think it's going to happen in your lifetime?
I believe it's imminent.
Scott Ross for CBN News, Jerusalem.
A small but growing number of Jews are demanding the right to pray on the Temple Mount, Judaism's holiest site. But the Temple Mount is also home to one of the most famous mosques in the world. And some Muslims get furious about reports that Jews are undermining that mosque, even if those reports aren't true. It's one of the most holy and contested pieces of real estate on earth, the Temple Mount. For decades, Islamic leaders have incited Muslims to violence by telling them that the Al-Aqsa Mosque is in danger. First, they claim that the Israelis were undermining its foundations to make it collapse. Now they also say it's a threat even for Jews to pray on the sacred plateau.
Extreme movements believe that Israel is planning to build the third temple and to destroy their holy shrine.
Known in Arabic as the Haram al-Sharif, or Noble Sanctuary, it's the place where two consecutive Jewish temples once stood. The second was destroyed in 70 AD by the Romans. Now, Muslim mosques occupy the site. The Golden Dome of the Rock to my right is the most identifiable Muslim shrine on the Temple Mount. But it's the gray-domed Al-Aqsa Mosque to my left that Muslims consider the third holiest site in Islam. They believe that Muhammad took a famous night ride from Mecca to Al-Aqsa on his winged horse, Al-Barak. Al-Aqsa was first built in 705 AD. In Muslim theology, the site precedes the Jews and goes back to creation.
You know, Adam, when he descended from the heaven, he came here and he was pray here.
No different between Sulaiman and King David and all the prophets. It's all the same. They've all been in Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Today, the entire plateau is referred to as Al-Aqsa. Nadav Shragai wrote the Al-Aqsa is in danger libel, The History of a Lie. He says when Muslim leaders want to unite the masses, they claim it's in danger.
The match that ignites the people and brings them to the streets and causes violence is this libel. Al-Aqsa is in danger and this is baseless.
Archaeologist Dr. Gabriel Barkai says there have been excavations near the Temple Mount, but never under it.
One of the cornerstones of Western civilization was never touched by the spade of the archaeologist.
Barkai says it was Muslims, not Jews, who began digging in an attempt to rewrite history.
Since the 90s, there were many destructive diggings going on in the Temple Mount, which were not for archaeological purposes, but the contrary, for destroying archaeological data.
Around 2000, the Islamic religious authorities dug up thousands of years of history with bulldozers from under the Temple Mount to make room for a giant mosque. Barkai headed an operation to save artifacts from the discarded material. Years later, archaeologists and volunteers still sift through the debris. According to Shragai, then Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Hajj Amin al-Husseini started the libel against Israel in the 1930s. He accused the Jews of wanting to collapse the mosques on the Temple Mount. That led to Muslim rioting and murder of the Jews, just the first of many incidents. Islamic expert Dr. Yitzhak Reiter says the tactic hasn't lost its potency.
They really believe in what they think. The Al-Aqsa is in danger as long as Israel is controlling the eastern part of East Jerusalem.
In 1969, the Muslim world blamed Israel for the arson attack on the Al-Aqsa Mosque by a visiting Australian Christian. That lie continues today. More trouble in 1996. The worst Israeli-Palestinian violence in 30 years broke out when Israel opened an exit for visitors to the Western Wall tunnels half a mile from Al-Aqsa. And in 2004, rain, snow, and a minor earthquake toppled the entrance ramp to the Temple Mount. That provoked an international Islamic uproar when Israel tried to rebuild it. We asked Muslims in Jerusalem what they think.
It's in danger. To destroy him, to took the place, it's in danger.
They are digging underneath it and digging and digging, and they don't find anything.
God will save it.
Recently, Israel arrested a key Islamic figure for incitement. He told his followers Israel planned to break into the Temple Mount, and they should use their bodies to prevent Jews from going up there. Experts say it's important the West takes notice now, because millions of Muslims believe the lie is true. They say if it brought violence in the past, it will do so in the future. Coming up, from Israel to the Middle East and beyond, we bring you the big events of the week.
You had a grandpa named Pop, right?
They died when I was your age.
I saw him in heaven.
What if an ordinary boy...
Is this him?
That's Pop.
Your son had a near-death experience.
...discovered the answer to life's most extraordinary question.
Do you think my son went to heaven?
He told me everything was all right.
Based on the incredible true story.
We all want to be supportive.
I want to believe him.
But everything he talks about is impossible.
Will you believe?
You saw heaven? It's beautiful.
Heaven is for real. See it this Easter. Rated PG.
Hi, I'm Wayne Allen Root, former presidential candidate, conservative national media personality, best-selling author, and true blue patriot. I call what we're living in today the Great Depression 2. More Americans now receive government entitlements than work full-time. The typical family earns less today than in 1989. I understand exactly what's happening to this economy and how you can protect yourself. So I sat down and taped a 30-minute DVD on the topic with all the critical steps needed to ensure Americans can both survive and thrive in 2014. It's called The Timeless Truth About Money, and it's only available in this special TV offer by calling the number below or by visiting online. Thanks to Swiss America, you'll finally understand the true goal of Obamacare, how our trillions in debt will sink the economy, and most importantly, why your golden years require a whole new golden strategy. Call now.
Start planning your journey to the Holy Land. Come to Jerusalem. Breathe the air Jesus breathed that very night in the Garden of Gethsemane. Walk in his footsteps to Golgotha. Step inside the tomb. See the stone where his body lay. Glory to God, he is risen. Ask your pastor or visit goisrael.com to learn more about making the journey that will transform your faith in God and his word. Experience Israel. You'll never be the same.
Welcome back to Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Wendy Griffith with your weekly news wrap from the Middle East. The Middle East peace talks are in danger of stalling out. Israel has canceled a plan to release more Palestinian prisoners. The Jewish state agreed last year to release 104 Palestinian prisoners in 4 stages as an incentive to keep the Mideast peace talks going. The announcement comes after the Palestinians renewed their push for membership at the United Nations. Israel says that's a violation of the terms of agreement for the prisoner release. Secretary of State John Kerry is urging both sides not to abandon the peace process. In an effort to keep the peace talks alive, the U.S. government suggested it would release an American convicted of spying for Israel. Jonathan Pollard was convicted in 1987. He's already served more than 25 years of his life sentence. The Obama administration reportedly was considering freeing Pollard as an incentive to Israel to release the Palestinian prisoners. Pollard and his ex-wife did not support the idea, but his ex-wife says she fears for his health.
I pray that the Israeli government right now, that Bibi Netanyahu and his security cabinet will do all in its power to make sure that Jonathan is released now, because I am so afraid for his health right now.
It is a bittersweet feeling. We want to see Jonathan Pollard coming back home after 29 years in jail. But at the same time, we cannot accept this agreement. We cannot release hundreds of murderers who were convicted in murdering Jewish people.
Dannon says the release of Pollard is really a humanitarian issue, and it was cynical for U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry to link that issue with the release of terrorists. Israel unveiled a recent discovery that has amazed archaeologists. It's a monastery dating back to the 6th century. Detailed mosaic floors provide a glimpse into what life was like back then. The excavation director calls the find spectacular and says the mosaics are unusual for the region. Detailed designs include inscriptions in Greek and Syriac. Researchers also found pottery, coins, and glass artifacts. Up next, how did Jerusalem become the most important city on earth? Our conversation with Simon Montefiore, author of Jerusalem, the biography.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
Author Simon Montefiore wrote one of the most important books about Jerusalem recently called Jerusalem, the biography. His ancestor, Sir Moses Montefiore, built Yemen Moshe, the community behind me, in the late 1800s, the first community built outside the walls of the old city. And that's where we sat down with Simon and talked about his book, Jerusalem, the biography. Why did you write this?
I wrote Jerusalem biography because no such book existed, and there are thousands of books on Jerusalem, as you know, on different parts of Jerusalem, Jesus' life, King David, the Zionist story from the 19th century and 20th centuries. But actually there is no complete history of Jerusalem with all the sects that isn't from a Zionist perspective or an Arab perspective or some polemical view. And I wanted to write a history that was everything, that was the biography. I'm sure people will find many things to complain about in the book. It's not perfect, but I think this is as close as you can get to a history for all faiths of Jerusalem of all periods.
And why do you call it a biography?
Well, I call it a biography because those of you who know Jewish religious texts will know that Jerusalem is often described as a beautiful woman, sometimes a princess, sometimes a fallen woman, but always a beautiful woman. And so I regard Jerusalem as a person. But also, I wanted to write a book that wasn't just about which pillar was built by the Byzantines, which church was built by the Crusaders, but also about the people that made Jerusalem, the families, the men, women and children, the songs they sung, the food they ate, the love affairs they had. And so that's what this book is. It's really a biography of biographies. Each section of the book is about one person. So that's why it's called the biography.
You've studied Jerusalem for such a long time, written about it, and lived it. Why do you think it's called why has it become the universal city?
Well, it's the universal city because it's holy to the three faiths. It's the city that all the world feels They have a vision of Jerusalem that belongs to them only. It's the only city that is the second home to just about everybody. That makes it very special. But really, it's because it's the holy city. And what is a holy city? It's the place, the primary place on earth for God to meet man, and for man to meet God. And that primary place has a specific place, of course, the Temple Mount, which is behind us, behind the windmill, behind us there.
And what did Disraeli say about Jerusalem?
Well, Disraeli said that, that Jerusalem, the history of Jerusalem is the history of the world, the history of heaven, earth, and the history of the world. And that's what it is. And so I wanted to write Jerusalem. It's a history of Jerusalem as the center of the world. Of course, Christians and Jews used to regard it literally as the center of the world, almost the Garden of Eden. But in many ways in the 21st century, it is still the center of the world for religious believers, of course. It's never been more the center of the world, and Jerusalem's never been a bigger city. It's even more bigger and more majestic now than it was under Herod the Great, the city of Jesus.
Do you see Jerusalem becoming more the focus and attention of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be becoming more and more the center of the world. I mean, obviously, first of all, there are more and more believers, Muslim, Jewish, but also Christian believers who look to Jerusalem, who look to the Temple Mount for Judgment Day, for the Apocalypse. And the numbers of believers in the three great Abrahamic religions is actually increasing, even though we sort of think of an increasingly secular world out there. And that means that Jerusalem will become more and more significant. But also, if you look at the tectonic plates that are moving, first of all, you know, the history of Jerusalem is always decided by what happens in Cairo and Damascus, the great sort of cities of the Middle East. That's all up in the air. There's the Israel-Palestine conflict. There's Iran versus America. There's Iran versus Israel. So there are vast sort of conflicts, and all of them center on these fragile stones. And in the book, I look at the sort of Temple Mount as really the center of everything. And it really is. And I actually love, one of the places I love most in Jerusalem is the Golden Gate, which is the place where all the three religions believe the Messiah will come, or the second coming will come, if you're Christian. And that's one of the most beautiful structures, the most mystical structures. Mystical, mysterious as well, since no one really knows who built it.
Is that so?
Yeah. I mean, it could have been built by Heraclius, the emperor Heraclius, who brought back the true cross to Jerusalem and may have entered through that gate. But it could also have been built by the Umayyad caliphs who came after. So it's really a fascinating structure, and that's where it's all going to happen.
Yeah. And so it's the three faiths that are looking for the Messiah, the Messianic age. You think that sort of turns everyone's focus and attention here?
Well, the point about Jerusalem is, you know, it's the holy city. It's the universal city. By the way, and that's a phrase that I sort of came up with to sort of sum up the way that it's the city of the world. It's the city. It's the center of the world. And so I see that sort of it's secular, it's strategic, and it's religious beliefs that are all converging on Jerusalem. So Jerusalem's only going to get more and more important.
Coming up, a sign of hope for Israel. How restoring a windmill is bringing people together in Israel.
Do you have an idea for an invention or a new product? Brian and Alice Jagosh, the inventors of the halftime drill driver, did. They invented a power drill attachment that lets you drill, flip, and drive in seconds. Brian and Alice licensed their invention to the company that brought you the Snuggie, and it's now selling in major retailers nationwide. Look for the Invent Help Caveman on the package. If you have an invention that you would like to try to patent and submit to companies for possible review and want free information on how InventHelp may be able to assist you, call now. InventHelp is America's largest inventor service company with sales offices in more than 60 cities nationwide. Call InventHelp today for free information. Our clients made a financial gain with their invention, but this is just their individual result. Brian and Alice's experience is not typical, as only a very small number of inventions are licensed or sold in stores.
For your free inventors information, call 1-800-559-8567. That's 1-800-559-8567.
If you had a choice between going bald and a full head of hair, which would you choose? Advances in medical science have resulted in the world's first and only permanent solution to hair loss.
Yes!
You wash it, you cut it. It's your own real naturally growing hair. When it comes to hair restoration, no one in the world has more experience than Bosley. The results look completely natural and are affordable on nearly any budget. But the entire process can't be explained in 60 brief seconds. So to find out more about this clinically proven and permanent solution to hair loss, call now to receive your free no-obligation information kit. It'll answer all of your questions about hair loss and hair restoration. Plus, we'll also send you this $250 gift certificate just for calling. Every day you wait, you're losing more hair. So don't put it off any longer. You owe it to yourself to find out the facts. Choose hair. Choose Bosley.
Call 800-868-9957. That's 800-868-9957.
This is a location we use many times in our Jerusalem Dateline program. What you may not notice is this restored windmill. It's the sign of a growing bond between Christians and Israel. And while it didn't make international headlines, it did move Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to credit Christian Zionists with a crucial role in founding the modern state of Israel. Julie Stahl has that story.
This windmill has been a Jerusalem landmark for more than 150 years, and now it's working again, thanks to a team effort. The Jerusalem Foundation, a group of Dutch Christians and government ministries, paid for the restoration work. That prompted praise for Christian Zionists from Prime Minister Netanyahu.
I don't believe that the Jewish state and modern Zionism would have been possible without Christian Zionism. I think that the many Christian supporters of the rebirth of the Jewish state and the ingathering of the Jewish people in the 19th century made possible the rise of Jewish Zionism.
A wealthy British Jew, Sir Moses Montefiore, established the windmill as part of the first Jewish settlements, or suburbs, outside the old city walls in the mid-1800s.
This is really the beginning of the new city, the modern city, the rebirth of Jerusalem.
Montefiore's great-great-nephew, Simon Montefiore, is a historian and author.
And so from this little windmill and these Montefiore cottages, just outside the Jaffa Gate, started all the suburbs around the old city walls, and that grew into the huge modern city of Jerusalem.
During Israel's independence war, Jewish fighters used the windmill to defend the city. In 1948, the British blew up the top of the windmill in what they called Operation Don Quixote. It was later restored for looks, but it never worked.
Almost every year I was here and I see the mill, and I feel the pain of the mill, and I think one day we have to give new life to the mill.
Windmill expert and Dutch Christian Gerrit Koenen initiated the restoration project and got others involved.
And I believe with the help of God, and I think it's the plan of God to repair, to restore the windmill, because it's more than a windmill, it's a symbol.
Dutch millwright Willem Dijkstra says he studied old photos and material for the restorations that took about 3 months.
It's not like the rebuilding, you do a reconstruction, so you have to try to find the most closest way how it was in the early times.
A few months from now, shafts and machinery will be installed to grind flour as the mill did for its first 20 years.
For me, it's more than a mill. I like the mills very much because my family for 100 years were millers. Personally, I'm convinced that this mill is a sign of hope for the Jewish people here in Israel. It's connected to the resurrection of the state of Israel after 2,000 years.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, that's it for this special edition of Jerusalem Dateline on the City of Jerusalem. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time right here in Jerusalem.